Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name's Benson. What's yours? So I have had this video idea in the works for a few weeks now. It's just being able to schedule and make sure my computer was fixed and stuff like that. But just to give you a little preface of what's happening is I'm going to start a video series basically called A Conversation with the Southern Black Community, just to kind of tell their stories and the things that they've experienced as far as systematic racism, you know, and just their kind of like life in the South. I wanted to meet with people and have a conversation with them. So the first two people I've sat down with, asked them a list of questions. One is a young gentleman from the Black community, and the other one is a young white girl, but she has a biracial daughter. And so I had her answer some questions based on her hopes for her daughter, and then with the gentleman, I asked him specific questions about his life if he was willing to answer those. We ended up talking for like almost two and a half hours, so I've got like an hour and a half worth of footage just talking with them two. So I'm going to break it down and do a different question each week, and I hope you'll stay through all the questions because you learn a lot of things. You learn some history, and you kind of get to take a trip into what it's like for the Black community, specifically living in like a southern small town. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I enjoyed sitting down and talking with them. This isn't the last ones. I've actually got two more lined up. I've done my very best to make sure they're completely comfortable having the conversation being recorded, using their name if their name is used, and for those that haven't been comfortable, I completely understand why. So again, I've got a couple more still coming. These set of questions will go to the end of the week, and then probably next week we'll start a new session. I'll try and sit down this weekend with my next couple of guests and do their recordings, and then break those out day by day for the following week. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I enjoyed doing it. I learned so much within just the first few minutes, much less the entire 2-hour conversation, just having them things that are local, specific to where we are. So hope you guys enjoy this. Hope you guys will sit through the entire video. And like I said, the reason I'm breaking them down question by question is we talked for a very long time, and I don't want to just drop like a 2-hour video on you. I wanted to break it down and kind of take it step by step. So hope you guys enjoy this one. Here it is. What we're basically going to do is go through just a list of questions. You guys have browsed over the questions. Again, if there's any question you're not comfortable answering, just be like, I don't feel comfortable. If other questions come up that aren't here that I think off the top of my head, then I may ask them, and you're more than welcome to not answer those as well. So what does being Black mean to you, Michael?
I read a quote. It was one of Stokely Carmichael, and Stokely Carmichael was he was an activist in the 60s during the civil rights movement. But he said our lips are thick, our noses are broad, our hair is nappy. We are black and beautiful. So I think of that when I looked at that question. That's what I thought of. I thought about that.
Okay. So what, for your daughter, what do you want black to mean to her?
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Because growing up, we were always like told, oh, she's pretty for a Black girl, or she's pretty for a Black man, you know what I'm saying, that type of thing. And there is no pretty for a Black man, pretty for a Black woman. You're pretty, you're beautiful.
Right.
You know, that period. There is no, I can't think of the word for it. There is no specific to it. You know what I'm saying? Beautiful is beautiful across the board. And she's strong and intelligent, independent, that type of thing. Because, like I said, growing up, we were always told, well, Black people are this, and Black people can't do that, and they're incompetent, and they're this, that, and the third. And it's like, they're really not, though. They're not. And just because they have more melanin in their skin doesn't mean that they are. Yeah. It blows me. Sorry. Oh. I could go on a whole hour rant about this type of thing.
No, it's fine. So, all right, Michael, so what does being Black and living in America mean to you?
Being Black and living in America. to me, it always means that you always have to be 2 steps ahead. You always have to work hard. No matter what you do, you have to always be the best. It means I just think it always means that no matter what you do, you always are going to have to be the best, and you're always going to have to work harder than the next person.
Yeah, I have a friend that is his constant.
I mean, it is, because I mean, even on jobs, a lot of people don't realize it. See, this goes beyond everything that's going on, because even if you go on a if you go on a job and work, I'm black, you might be white. I'm always gonna have to be a step ahead, because somebody's always gonna watch me.
Exactly.
Somebody's always gonna be watching me to see what I'm doing. So it's like you always have to work hard, no matter what. Let's see. That's like I told somebody, a girl I used to work with, because I work in a restaurant, I work with the public. I told her, the difference between you and me, I said, you can walk out on the dining room floor and be given respect. I said, for 2 reasons. I said, number 1, because you white. Number 2, because you're attractive and you're good looking. Whereas I might walk out here, I'm gonna have to earn respect. That's the difference, and that's the problem, because people are just gonna see you as being beautiful. I said, they're gonna look at me and immediately they're gonna judge me based on how I look. And when you're black, a lot of times, and you deal with people, the first instinct when they look at you, automatically, a lot of times, it's bad. It's bad. So, you know, until people actually get to know you, because like I worked in town the last 14 years, and I mean, I worked with the public. I remember when I was in my 20s, how I got treated by a lot of people that didn't even know me, but they treated me differently because they weren't used to having to come in a place and deal with somebody black. So I looked at how they treated me, but I looked at how they treated people that were white that I worked with. They treated them one way, but they treated me totally different, until they actually got to know me. And then it's like, you know, you're actually a really sweet person. But if you would have took the opportunity to get to know me instead of judging me by how I look, you would have found that out anyway, you know.
So what do you want being black and living in America to mean for your daughter?
So when I read that question last night, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to answer that, because like, in, you know, my dreamland, I would want her to be completely equal across the board, and not just in the police eyes, but like medical eyes and education eyes and a lot of that. Because like working in a college, right, we have a ton of more white students compared to black students. And that's because when they walk in the door, the first people they see are white. Those first people, white people in front might not be racist. Well, blatantly racist. But then there's a covert racism. So they first walk in and they immediately kind of straighten up and put their stuff to the side, and you know what I'm saying, like that type of thing. So they're immediately discouraged right there. And you might have the next engineer walking in the door, but you'll never know because you're judging off their skin color. So to me, I'm trying to figure out how I want to say this, like, and make it make sense. I don't know. I want her just to be equal across the board. Same with my godsons, like, just the same treatment I get. I want her to have the same, not advantage, but this, you know what I'm saying, like, across the board, like the same way I'm treated, I want her to be treated.
That's a very valid one. What does being black and living in the South mean to you, Michael?
I didn't think about that. I think I could put that. Can we skip that one?
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
perfectly fine.
Skip that one.
I kind of assumed that would be a little bit more complex because it's one thing to be black in America. It's completely different when you get into living in the side that was like, no, race, like slavery should stay, like, especially in southern small towns. It's a scary thing. No, do you want to skip that one?
So I would add the comment that, yeah, it's just scary. I mean, I can't speak for black people because, again, I'll never have to experience what you guys experience. But I know from witnessing, like, growing up, you know, being friends with black people, like, even before I had, like, my first black boyfriend or whatever, even before that, it was just always, like, they were talked down to, and
Well, I'm gonna tell you this. You found out, being black in the South, you find out what the N-word means.
That's what I was just about to say.
Now we'll answer and say that. When you black in the South, you find out what the N-word means.
Quick.
You hear it. I remember I had to be about, I was a kid, but at that time I came up and I asked my mom what it meant, and she said, Mike, she said, it don't mean your skin color. She said, nigga means trash. She said, that can be anybody. And she said, don't you ever let anybody tell you trash because you're not trash. I remember when I first came back to school in a smaller town, a lot of the classes I had, when I left, moved from where I was at, I was used to being in a class with about 3 or 4 other black kids in a class. When I came back to a small town, you go in a class, you might be the only person in there. I remember experience getting called the N-word at school, and having to go, to the principal's office and everything. And then working in a small town, I got experience being called that. But at the time that it happened, I told somebody, I said, God works in very mysterious ways, because the day it happened, what it was an older white gentleman. He was getting ready to check out, and he wanted his server to take his money. She said, you got to give your money to Michael. He was like, no, I'm not giving him my money. I'm giving you my money. So, at that point, I'm like, cool. You don't want me to take your money? That's fine. It's cool with me. Well, I happened to walk off, and he said, damn nigga, on the dining room floor. And 2 of the servers that I was working with that were white, they heard him, and they made him leave. And I told somebody, I said, God do things for a reason. I said, because I didn't hear him say it, but they heard him say it. I said, if I would have heard him say it, I would have got out of character and reacted. But they heard him say it, and they felt really bad about it. But I told them, I said, the saving grace out of that is, now y'all see what I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I said, this is the life of being black in America. This is the life of being black in the South. You have people blatantly be racist to your face. But like I say, it doesn't bother me, which I'm gonna be honest, as far as rap, I'm not really cool with it being in rap music. And a lot of people say, well, we took the word and we changed it. That's fine and well, but the origin is still the same. The origin is still the same. But like I said, you have to know who you are and whose you are. And like I said, my mom always told me that word meant trash, and I'm not trash by a long shot. So, but that's, when you're black in the South, you find out early on what that word means. you know.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, that's basically what I was about
I
to say.
appreciate your answer. That's a good perspective that people need to know. You know, you're right in the South. Like I can
It's
remember.
demeaning. It's very much demeaning. It's very demeaning.
Yeah. Do you have any kids?
No, not yet.
No, not yet. Okay, all
Not
right.
yet.
But we know you have kids.
Yeah.
A kid. So, what's it like for you having a kid with everything going on?
It's really scary, just because, for one, like, I've been trying really, really hard to change a lot of stuff. Like, even if it comes down to, like, the jokes that I laugh at, or the jokes that I make, or the language that I use, or I've been trying really hard just with myself to change stuff, and then to see, like, and I've also tried to, you know, with my white friends, like, you know, some jokes I make, I'm like, hey, you know, that was funny when we were younger, we didn't know what was behind it, but this is what's behind it, and this is why it's not funny anymore, you know? So even though I've been trying to do that, like, stuff like this happens, and I'm like, what the fuck? You know, like, what? Damn, like, what else can I do? And I'm not saying, like, oh, I talked to 2 white people, so that means the whole world's changed. I'm not saying that, but it's like, you put in all this, like, work and this dedication and this energy, and nothing, like, it seems to get worse, it feels like, you know?
People dig their heels in and they stick to what they...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people aren't willing to educate themselves.
No,
so...
and that's the thing. A lot of people aren't willing to educate themselves, and a lot of people aren't willing to, you know, because when you educate yourself, you evolve. You know, you evolve. You know, you look at the perspective. You look at things out of a different lens. You know.
So I will say with that, like, to educate yourself, I have a few black friends who, you know, they're like, if you come to me and ask me to educate you, don't be surprised when I tell you no. Like, it's exhausting trying to educate you of our history, of our culture, and then for you to fight me on that education, like, to push back that. Go do your own research. It's out there, especially in the land of the internet. You can find everything now. You know, like, just because you didn't learn it in school doesn't mean it's not there.
And see, that's the thing. I was telling one of my young friends, the young hosts that work up under me at work, we were talking, and I said, you know, I always hear people talk about, especially in the South, about my grandfather did this, my grandfather did that, my grandfather fought wars. My late great uncle Adolphus, which he's been deceased for the last 8 years now, he fought in World War I. I didn't even realize he was a World War I veteran until I saw his picture. And I was explaining to her, I said, they don't teach this. I said, but there's a lot of older black men, that's like the Tuskegee Airmen, a lot of older black men that fought in World War I during Pearl Harbor. I said, he fought in Pearl Harbor. I said, but when he returned home, he still didn't have the right to vote. He still had to go in the back of restaurants to get food. He didn't have the same rights, and that's what I told somebody. I said, there are a lot of black people that have fought wars for this country. They fought wars in other countries at a time when this country was still at war with itself, you know.
And I think that's the most, I think that's what a lot of people don't think about, is like, you were saying your grandmother, who's 98, she was alive before all of...
Yeah, she was alive during the great, she was a baby, you know, she was a small child during the Great Depression. Her and my great grandfather, they lived through that span. Their parents were the children of slaves. Their parents were born in the late 1800s, which would have been like, I think my great grandfather on my mom's side was born like 1895. So that was so many years, 20 or 30 some years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed to free the slaves. You know, so she's, you know, lived through the Great Depression. She's lived through the Civil Rights Movement. She's lived through World War I, World War II. You know, she's lived, she's 90, like I said, she's almost 100. She's like almost a century old. She's lived to see all of this, you know.
That's so crazy.
God,
that's like my...
She just she's this beautiful well of knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And what's crazy is that, like, okay, so my grandpa's 97, and he mainly talks about like the, I should say, the white side of it. So basically, like, long story short, there is no black education on it.
Yeah.
Like, growing up, we always, because, you know, Black History Month would come around and we're always like, oh, you know, we learn about Martin Luther King and a little bit about Malcolm X, and that was that.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, like, in our church, from me being a kid, we always celebrated Black History Month, which they started doing it under one of the pastors we had. In my whole 12 years of school, I only had 2 teachers that recognized other black historians other than Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, because, you know, early on as a kid, those are the first 2 people that you do learn about. And one of those teachers was white, one of them was black, and they introduced like Harriet Tubman, and from that, because and to be a black kid in a school, that made a light go on, because it's like I'm learning about somebody that looks like that looks like me. And then like, it's a lot that people don't even know. That's like I always do for Black History. I always do a fact every day, and I did a fact about soul food and how it originated. And I had a lot of people comment and email. They said, I didn't know that. Like, in slavery, like, you have people eat, people eat hog chitlins. You know about hog chitlins. Like, the pig's intestines and the pig ears and all of that, that's the parts of the hog that the slave masters would give slaves to eat. They would eat all the good stuff. They would take that and give that to the slaves. And a lot of slaves, they sharecrop, and then they also crop for themselves to have food. Whereas the slave master thought that they were giving them something bad, they were actually giving them something good, because whereas they thought that they were ignorant, they had the knowledge enough to take a little bit of what they were given and make a meal out of it. So that's where with that, that's where soul food comes from. And like nowadays, like I was hearing my uncles and say when they were coming up, they ate, they ate chitlins, they would eat like hog head cheese, they ate sweet potatoes, they ate all that stuff. Now they be like, you go to the store, you can't even buy that stuff now.
You're right, because I've looked for it, because like people are like, oh, you had this, and I'm like, I've never had that. I'm like, so I'll go again, like I've taught myself to cook, so like I go beyond, like I grew up eating white food, like it's just baked chicken, like spaghetti, right? So like when I got older, I was like, I'm so sick of this stuff. Like I have delved into other cultures and how they cook, and like if you look at my spice cabinet, it's a spice cabinet, a spice rack, and then I have a giant rack, and half of it's got spice, like, and they're just from literally around the world. But it's because like I've delved into those other cultures, and to see, you can see a culture through their food, and I think that's some of the most beautiful thing you can do, is to learn to cook somebody else's meal, because you see what goes into it. I love it. The history thing is, we just, in the last decade, we just found out that the only reason we made it to the moon was because of a black woman who, let's put it this way, she is like super, like, we're not giving her that respect. She is a genius. She did what a computer, given back then they were garbage anyways, but she did what a computer couldn't do. And even today, she was just, and I think the picture I saw was like her standing next to it, there's a stack of papers, and that's literally code she hand wrote. And I'm like, you're not getting enough credit for some of the most amazing.
But I think I did read somewhere where NASA was renaming a part of their thing after her, and I was like, about freaking time. Like,
somebody else shared that. They were like, well, it only took you however many long. Well, that's where we're going to stop for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a great deal just by listening to the 4 questions that we've gotten through. There are about 6 or 7 more, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, plenty more footage, and as you can see, some of the questions lead us into other areas where we talk about some history or some topics that that Michael brought up about soul food and how it was created. So I hope you guys enjoyed this so far. Keep coming back, checking back for the rest of the week. We'll finish out these videos. Again, thank you so much to Michael for coming and giving his perspective, and then for Cheyenne to come and give her perspective as a mom of a young biracial kid and what she's looking for her and the things that she's worried about. And like I said, I've got some more people lined up to do this, and I appreciate their even offering to be a part of it. So hope you guys enjoy this one. We do love you guys. Till tomorrow.